Okay, well, the day's finally come. Most of the machinery grade work is done. It's time to do some fine-tune leveling and get this yard seeded. So if you've been following along, you know that last year I decided to do some testing, kill off a section of Poa Trivialis, reseed it in the spring and see how that went. And I'll link to that playlist up here. Went really well. None of the Poa Triv came back in those test areas, but in the areas that I didn't do that, it spread like wildfire. So what I'm going to do is, or what I did is I killed everything off, and what I'm going to do is just completely reseed it. Now, doing this in the spring is not the ideal time for a renovation, but it is the ideal time to kill off things like Poa Trivialis. So that's what I chose to do. Now, there's some battles with that. One, I've been battling the rain, which finally getting a good break to deal with that. Weed pressure is going to be an issue. It is now the middle of May, and going into summer. Fortunately, here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get extremely hot, so I don't have to worry about that too much, but it is going to be an issue. So where I'm at with this is the machine work's done. Now I've got some hand grading to do. I've got some soil mixture stuff to do that with. It's basically 50% topsoil, 25% compost, and 25% sand. And that's where I'm going to do the bulk of the leveling. Any place that's more than about a ½ inch deep, I'm going to do that. Everywhere else, I plan on trying to go back and get just some compost and sand mix and spread that out. Try and help this clay out a little bit. That does take years and years and years in application to get that to work. However, you got to start somewhere, right? So I've got some special tools to help with that I will share with you. And I'm anxious to get this going, take advantage of this, get it seeded, because this project so far is about 5 weeks in the making. The glyphosate process took 3 or 4 weeks. The grade work with the tractors took a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I've been doing some hand raking and everything else. It's been busy, but I'm going to try and shorten this up all into one video for you. So let's get started. Okay, so what I have here is this stuff I picked up at a local nursery supply place. But this is basically, like I said, screen topsoil, compost, and sand. And while it does look like there's some rocks in here, this stuff breaks up really, really nicely. Unlike what I used in the backyard last year, which was just junk, I spent the extra money and got this good stuff. So I'm anxious to get this out, get this going. Let's just do it. So I bought 2 yards of this 3-way mixture, knowing that I was going to have some areas all around the sidewalk to bring up quite a bit, because as I peeled up the excess soil that was above the sidewalk with the tractor, it would actually dig quite a bit deeper. So I knew I was going to have to level it out. So that's what I primarily used it for, was to fill in along the edges all the way around the sidewalk. And this stuff spread really nicely with this landscape rake. Made it pretty easy to get it spread out and level it off as much as you could. And the clumps and stuff, because where I bought this from, they generally kind of keep it a little moist and wet to keep the dust down. So I wanted to get it spread out so that it would, as the day went on, it would dry out and I could fine tune the leveling a bit better. But it spread pretty easily. Just had a few clumps every now and then I would have to step on or smash up with the rake. And there wasn't hardly any rocks in this, absolutely no trash, unlike the stuff I'd bought in the fall and used in the backyard. But this stuff worked really, really well. And it took a few passes to get it kind of halfway smoothed out. The bulk of it, like I said, I did with the leveling rake. And then eventually I brought in, or started to use, a level lawn. Now, I did buy this level lawn from R&R. A lot of you have heard of these and seen them. Now, typically, I would probably not buy something like this because I don't plan on real mowing at all. But I knew this bigger project was coming, and then ultimately one of my goals in the future is to continue to use a compost to apply once or twice a year to help improve the soil. And once I got it pretty roughly spread out, then I would take the roller that's filled with water and roll it out, and so I can figure out where spots were still a little low or even too high, and just kind of repeat the process over and over until I was satisfied with it. The roller helps quite a bit at compressing things, especially this stuff was so loose. It's a lot better than trying to use a hand tamper. But as you can see here, I went all the way around the edge of the sidewalk and feathered in where it had dug a little too much into where we hadn't dug any grade down at all. And I think it turned out really well. This spot around the maple tree, I ended up having to do a lot of hand work around. There just wasn't room to get a tractor in here, but I did get it to where I was satisfied with it. But I know it's going to be difficult for some of you to see here, but the backside here along the house is where I hit a huge grade issue. Water would drain in towards the house, and we cut quite a bit of dirt away. It's hard to see in this picture here, but that sprinkler head sticking up there is actually sticking up about 3 inches. I ended up having to drop it back down after we cut all that grade away. So once we got the 3-way sand put out, I started putting out a 2-way. And what that is just compost, 50% compost, 50% sand. Wasn't really trying to do any leveling here, maybe just some fine-tuned smoothing. I know eventually the compost is going to break down. Wasn't really my goal to make it, glass and perfectly smooth. I just wanted to get some organic material back into this soil and use it to kind of help smooth things off. But the gorilla cart and the 2 rakes made life pretty easy. I tell you, if you ever do a bigger project like this, that gorilla cart's a godsend. Other than trying to use a wheelbarrow, it would take forever. But it was the same thing. Rake the stuff out a little bit with the landscape rake, get it to about the depth I wanted it, which up in this area was about a quarter inch to a half inch at the most. And as you can see, the stuff closer down by the sidewalk, as it would sit out in the sun, it would dry and make it a whole lot easier to use the level lawn to really get it nice and flat. But it did work. It worked really well. That level lawn I'm really glad. It's one of those things that you buy and it hurts when you buy it, and then you're glad you have it when you have it. It made a huge difference. I bought the 36-inch, not the 40-inch, so it wasn't too bad, a little over $100. I'll put a link in the description down below if you want to look at those. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. It's just where I got it. I may even link to another one on Amazon. They're pretty price comparable, but I can tell you this one was heavy enough I didn't really have to do a whole lot of like hard pushing or anything like that. And of course, no projects ain't complete without old Brutus. He wanted to come out and say hi, and he was all excited as he was watching, a little nervous too. A lot of new things going on around him, but he's always fun. He's such a cute little guy. I know some of you guys like to see him, but he just wanted some attention in the warm weather. Well, it's time to get back to work. It was getting hot. I wanted to get this done, and at this point I still had about 1.5 yards to get unloaded. Once I got all that spread out, the next thing I did was obviously go through and roll it all. I did roll it several times, opposing directions, and then come back and hit it with the level lawn rake to get things pretty smoothed out, and then of course then re-roll it, and it's a process. This whole thing took me putting the 4 yards of material out and spreading it and rolling it took about 1.5 days. The second part of this video, or this series, we'll get into the rest of the actual seeding and fertilizing, that whole process I went through there. But for today, I just wanted to see what I did to get to this point. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll have that second part of this video out very shortly.